just call on to Conte and he would give you that. And like Ahmed has mentioned, when he went to Chelsea, he did it in his first season. And I think he did it in Inter as well. And he's been doing it in all the clubs that he goes to. He will make sure he will deliver trophy for you,
Except
which
for
is very, very
Tottenham.
important. The only issue with Conte is I think after a season he demands, or after two seasons he demands for more, which is always causing harmony between him, the management, and some of the players. But apart from that, if you want an immediate trophy, call on to Conte and he's going to deliver that for you.
Welcome to another edition of the Go podcast. My name is Samson. I'm your favorite host. The Let Go podcast is the home of everything football, banter, education, knowledge sharing, and vibes. It's been an interesting week across Europe, and I'm sure my panelists have a lot to say today. With me today, I have Yinka, our Inter fan. I have Ahmed, the Milan fan, and I have JD, who is also an Inter fan. Like I said, a lot has happened this week, and I'm going to start straight with the uh, hottest news in town. The curtain has been drawn, and the season has come to an end for the title challengers in Italy. Antonio Conte's Napoli have emerged champions for the fourth time in the history of the club. Napoli defeated Cagliari 2-0 tonight. Inter, who were hoping that Cagliari would do them a favor, also defeated Como. But Omipojo Kalo, the water was more than the Gary for Inter. And currently in the streets of Milan, they are playing Otilo for Inter. Ahmed, give me your thoughts on this one.
It is, it is, it is an, it is an interesting evening. Wow. Uh, Kudos to Conte, kudos to Napoli. I wouldn't say they did the unthinkable, but they did something very few expected. Uh, the only few people that gave Napoli a chance to do what they did was the factor of having Conte as their coach. We know him to be perennial winner as far as league runs are concerned. So he has done that once again. He has proven uh, his mantle. This is not the first time. This is, in fact, he's done it with Juve. He has done it with Chelsea. Now again with Napoli side that has struggled thoroughly last season. Uh, he did the unthinkable, so to say. We all expected Inter to win this championship, and we actually even expected Milan to give them a run, but
Eh, eh, eh,
against
eh, 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 eh.
yeah,
Ahmed,
that was the expectation coming
Ahmed,
into the season. That was that
Ahmed,
was
Ahmed.
this. Yes, I'm listening.
Bury your expectation now. Bury,
The,
Bury
the
your
truth the
expectation
truth
for
has to
now.
be said. Coming into the season,
Tosin,
considering the kinds of recruitment Milan made, we expected, yes, Inter were clear favourites, but we all expected Milan to give them a run, not Napoli. So that is the point I'm trying to make, that Conte actually
Ahmed,
uh, he did really good for Napoli.
man proposes.
God disposes.
Thank you.
So tonight you want them that fourth Scudetto, contrary to many opinions that the team is bad, the team is poorly constructed. We also should not forget that a bulk of that team won a Scudetto 2 years ago, but that was clouded by the woeful performance of last season. So Conte brought in renewed energy, renewed vitality. They came, they saw, they conquered. and they did us proud and made sure Inter won't have one over us again this season. At least that is why we are behind Napoli. Kudos to everyone involved.
Tosin, welcome to the show. It's good to have you again. And
I give it back.
we are discussing the Napoli Scudetto win. Uh, I want to put you on the spot straight away. Is Antonio Conte a manager you admire?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Tosin.
Yes, I would say yes because when you want a trophy immediately, just call on to Conte and he would give you that. Like Ahmed has mentioned, when he went to Chelsea, he did it in his first season. And I think he did it in Inter as well, and he's been doing it in all the clubs that he goes to. He will make sure he will deliver trophy for you,
Except
which
for
is very
Tottenham.
very important. The only issue with Conte is I think after a season he demands, or after two seasons he demands for more, which is always causing harmony between him, the management, and some of the players. But apart from that, if you want an immediate trophy, call on to Conte and he's going to deliver that for you.
Are you sure Arsenal does not need Conte?
Um, for Arsenal, yes.
You are thinking about it.
No, yeah. Trophy wise, I would say if Arsenal needs trophy, an immediate trophy, why not Conte? But we know that if we are going to get Conte, it's just for a short period of time, maybe 1 to 2 seasons, and then we're done. Then get another manager. But apart from that, um,
you
I'll
know
still
what?
say let's keep Ateta for
You know what, Conte?
one more season. As
No,
I'll
no.
still say let's keep Ateta for one more season
He
to
does not
see.
want instant trophy. Leave him now. Is he your
Okay.
trophy?
He wants to be.
I'll
He
still
wants
say
to build gradually.
I will still say let's keep Ateta for one more season and keep the team as it is because for example when you win the trophy with Conte and for this season for example when let's say we get Conte for next season now he wins all the trophy after that season some of the players might leave which it's not going to be really nice for the team as well, the team harmony. So, which is why I said better keep Ateta. He's already building something already, and
Okay.
just
Rome was not built in a day. Abi?
giving him a lot of time. But let's
How many
just give him
story
one
building is
more
he
season to
building?
see.
Yeah.
Arsenal board and
Just,
fans. I
okay.
don't think you can be an Arsenal fan. We are very, very patient
Okay.
as a
Mhm.
fan. Yeah, so which is why we support Arsenal. So I will still say let's give him one more season to see what he's going to do at the club. But apart from this next season, we go next season trophyless, then just forget about it and sack him.
No problem. We'll come back to that. Yinka, I know you've been itching to go. The mood in the Inter camp is not friendly tonight, but let us just do a prognosis of the season. Uh, Inter definitely disappointed many of us. With very few people expected Napoli to be crowned champion tonight. At what point did Inter uh, hand the initiative to Napoli?
Well, first thing I'd like to say is that I'm not itching to go. This is not something that I even want to talk about because another thing I also need to say is congratulations to Napoli and Antonio Conte. So that I wouldn't sound
Drum
like a
roll,
sore
drum roll,
loser.
drum roll, drum roll, drum.
Congratulations to Napoli and Antonio Conte. But I think that yes, while many people expected that Inter would win the title, a lot of factors fell into Napoli's favor. You know, going as the season progressed. One of them would be because of the fact that they were playing in just one competition. As we all know, Conte is a master when it comes to playing in one competition. He's a master when it comes to playing in the league. And some would even argue that he forfeited the Coppa Italia just to focus, solely on the league. But that's not to take away anything from him. I mean, despite the fact that they were just playing in one competition, you still needed to keep the players focused. You still needed to grind out those wins, and he did just that. Um, for me, the point where Inter lost the league, it's difficult to say, Rick. There are several games where Inter should have picked up, maximum point, and they lost it, mostly due to Inter's fragile defense. Um, Especially at the start of the season. At the start of the season, Inter conceded a lot of goals, dropped a number of points that they shouldn't have dropped. At that time, Napoli were still not there. They were still not quite there, especially when you look at Napoli's first 5 games. I think they lost maybe 2 or 3 of their first 5 games before they then picked up. So at the start of the season, I think we also lost a bit of momentum. We should have picked up momentum. And then at some point, we just handed it over to Napoli. Because if you look at the season, I think if we do a proper analysis of the season, you'll notice that Napoli led the league for much more time than Inter actually did.
20 weeks.
Inter had to play catch up for most of the season until a few weeks to the end of the season, and then Inter handed it over to Napoli again when Napoli lost form. So there are different ways of looking at this. For me, if I was to single-handedly pick out someone or something to blame for Inter's inability to win the league this season, I would say it was Simone Inzaghi. Personally, I feel like he did not trust his squad enough. And because he did not trust that squad enough, it meant that he had to overuse some of his key players. And when it was time to then depend on some of those players, he did not have them because they were injured. He preferred to use some of those French players in the Champions League. He was using the key players in the league, and then those players were piling up, games. Champions League, you play say 8 games in the group stage. Between September and December, January rather, you play about 8 games in the group stage. Or in the league, between September or August and January, you would have played about 19 or 20 games. So he used some of those, or a lot of our key players in the league. He chose to use some of those French players or some of those backups in the Champions League. I think that over time, it's, it told on the squad, as in, it had an effect on the squad. And then towards the tail end of the season, the business end of the season, those players started picking up injuries. And because it did not really trust on those French players, there was not much that they could do because they had not been given that trust from the beginning of the season, which is one of the advantages that Conte has, by the way. So if I was to blame anyone, so obviously there's blame to go around. There's so many reasons that Inter lost the league. But if I was to pick up the key factor, it would be Simone Inzaghi's lack of trust in the entire squad. For me.
Well, I share your opinion, and I remember that I mentioned it sometimes in the group that there were some matches that he made some substitutions that counted against Inter in the match. I can remember some matches where he took out Bastoni, he took out Charanoglu. Within 5-10 minutes of that substitution, the match took a different turn. In later episodes, I'm sure we'll have a season review of most of the big leagues and the big teams. But let me just go to JD. Uh, 3/3 is now looking like 1/3.
Or 0/3,
Uh,
in fact.
no, 1/3. As
One over three, one over three.
we've not seen that final.
0/3 is very possible. Let's not
Uh,
fool ourselves.
yeah, of course. JD, if for any reason 3/3 becomes 0/3, is it enough to question the position of Simone Inzaghi?
Definitely, definitely. If Inter end up not winning anything at the end of the season, then his leadership would have to come into questioning. That's because arguably Inter have had the best squad in Italy, and I really do not have any. I really do not see any reasons why Inter should not be winning the Scudetto. That's because in the last 4 years, Napoli have won it twice. And if you look at it from that
Yeah.
perspective, you would want to critically assess all of his time with Inter thus far. He has spent 4 years. He has won the league only once, all of which he were favourites to win. So if you are winning just one Scudetto from a possible four, then your leadership has to come into questioning. Forget about the two Champions League finals. We might end up not winning anything this season. So you could probably have managed your squad. Like Olon said, he didn't trust the whole squad. He was so hell bent on a particular set of players, probably the starting 11, so much that the reserve players were not used to coming to play. So every time he called upon them, I think more often than not, they failed to deliver. So, first, I would say congratulations to Napoli. They fought a good fight, but at the same time, I think Inter did not take advantage of their chances. We had situations in the course of the season where we should have displaced Napoli and go top. All of the times we had the advantage in our hands, we fluffed. So another factor that played out was I think last season we scored about 94 points. This season we scored 13 points less. We considered 13 more goals than we did last season. I think our fragile defense, as Olons mentioned, is what's actually played the worst part in our title loss. So another factor that I saw played out was last season we scored more goals, scored about 89 goals last season. We scored 10 more this season. Those things are the little factors that finally came into play in where the title ended up. So I think Anthony Conte, they were not fantastic. They scored just about 59 goals and conceded just 25, I think. So their
Yeah.
defense actually won them the Scudetto. They didn't have to score many as long as they were compact at the back. And McTominay was immense for them. I think he is the signing of the season. He's the best player in Serie A. He decided the title, and I think I will say again that congratulations to them. But I'm actually very disappointed in Simone Inzaghi.
We share our disappointment regardless of the banter. Napoli doing 2 in 4 years. It's it's embarrassing to the top four teams in the league, not
That's
just Inter.
exactly the perspective
But,
from where I'm seeing it.
but then it is what it is. Uh, it is there's a party in London currently. Unfortunately, it's in the white side of London, not the red side. Tottenham Hotspur ended in a 17-year wait for a trophy. We are coming to that. Still on this Scudetto race. Yinka, ask. I want to ask your opinion on an angle that is playing out. Napoli would have won the second Scudetto in 4 years, but the manager is leaving again. We saw the way it ended for Spalletti. Conte is on his way out of Napoli.
Allegedly.
Is allegedly is Napoli fast becoming a one-stop shop
A stepping
for
stone.
trophy, or Aurelio De Laurentiis is not just a good person to work with. What do you think?
Well, I wouldn't call them a stepping stone. While Napoli might not be at the same level with teams like Inter, Juventus, AC Milan, they are certainly not a small club. They are not a small club. So you would not call them a stepping stone. However, their ownership, and I'm referring to one person now, Aurelio De Laurentiis, is one man that makes it look like management should be more difficult than it looks. For one, they shouldn't have even been in the situation where Antonio Conte would come in if he had just treated Luciano Spalletti right. He, out of his, stubbornness and always wanting to do things his way, he lost Luciano Spalletti, ended up losing an entire season with Napoli where they were neither here or there. In fact, they were more of there than here. With Rudy Garcia, I've forgotten the other coach that they brought in. I think they brought in Walter Mazzari as well at some point. Used about three coaches last season. So he just wasted an entire season, which then led them to Antonio Conte. Now it looks like almost the same scenario, almost the same situation is about to play out again. Even though if you look at Conte's history, you can easily say that Conte is also someone that more
He's
often
a
than
tough
not,
character.
he finds himself in situations like this. Um, for one, when it was obvious that Conte was going to win the Scudetto, it was all it was even more obvious that he was going to demand more for the following season because that's his style. If he wins some, when he doesn't win, he demands. Even when he wins, he demands more. So according to reports, he's asking for at least 200 million to spend in the transfer window. He's asking for certain conditions to be met before he would continue with the club. So it's looking more likely that he would be out of the club than, staying with the club. I wouldn't say it's come at a surprise though, because a lot of us must have predicted it when he joined Napoli. You cannot have two alpha males in one ship. At some point, one would have to give way. And De Laurentiis is a very stubborn owner. Antonio Conte is a very stubborn coach. So it was always going to come to there's still the slight possibility that they would continue together. But even if they do continue together, I think it's all just going to last another season before these rumors start coming up again.
Okay, this is just my own opinion, and looking at at this Napoli squad, personally, I do not think Conte is asking for too much. Uh, this season has been a miracle for them, and next season they will be competing in three competitions. Even though we know Conte would willingly forfeit the Champions League to come and slug it out in the league. But then the squad needs reinforcement. He has also asked for some infrastructural improvement, which is not out of place. So I think this is a case of uh, Conte with a track record, but he's making legitimate claims,
But,
and De Laurentiis is stubborn, will not yield.
but Conte should also understand that, like I said earlier, Napoli is not at the same level as Juventus, Inter, and AC Milan. He should understand the level of the club that he is. He should understand the kind of
At least
commitment
financially.
that that kind of club would be able to make in the transfer market, for example, or on infrastructures, for example. So, personally, I think he should have known what he was getting into. Also, when you consider the fact that Conte has a track record of performing with, would I say, not
Underdogs.
so great, not elite players, not A-listers. He has a track record of doing well with players that are not particularly world class. I wouldn't call them terrible players, but they're just there. They're just average players. So
But
you're coming with this track.
what if you consider the fact that Napoli are one of the very few teams in Serie A who has been turning profits year in year out in Serie A?
Turning
Because
profits and revenue is not particular.
I understand the fact that they are not as big as Inter, Juve, and the likes, but they are very healthy financially.
But
I think they can
No, 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 no,
afford
no.
to.
I think you're mistaking. You're mistaking a few points. Turning
All right.
profits and making a lot of revenue are not the same thing. For example, Barca make close to 1 billion in revenue, but they are running at a loss.
I get
Napoli
it.
would
Definitely.
probably be making, say, 200 million or making 200 million in profits, and they are running at 200 million in revenue, and they are running at a profit. That's because they've
Eh,
kept their expenses to a very, very
Definitely.
minimal level.
Definitely.
So
Exactly.
you as because
Definitely.
that's the way
But
they've been running the club, you would not now come from somewhere and then say, let's increase our expenses to 400 million when we know that our income is about 250 million. You want to kill the club. So that's
but
why
Well,
I said he should have
they have
known.
some expected inflow. They have some expected inflow already with the sales of the likes of Osimhen that is forthcoming, and uh, add to
Kvaratskhelia.
that their profit margin, which is usually between the range of 60, 80 million. I think that is substantial enough, and add to that the prize money of competing in
Med,
the Champions League next
you
season.
don't expect you don't expect De Laurentiis to park all his
I,
revenue
ju-
and
I
his
just
funds
feel
on transfer.
I just feel I just feel it's their strategy.
Yeah,
There are some
The
clubs
question
that
is,
they
if
don't
the man
overspend.
invest,
They
who invest
rather
the money in the
yeah,
club?
exactly. So they rather keep the money than spend. the money. So they have a strategy. They know what, for example, they know what they need to spend for next season, not then overgoing going
Their budget.
through the budget. Yes. So they have a strategy. So I
Laurentiis
think
is
that's the
someone who
kind of the
spends
owner
once he
Laurentis
wants to
is.
spend, he spends even more than you can imagine. So I think it is more of
Well,
not backing
It's
Conte
a
enough.
case of what it feels like. If he's in the mood to
Yes,
spend, he spends really
so
well,
so
and if he doesn't
so
want to
that's the
spend, I don't
point.
think
That's the point
anyone
I'm
can
making.
actually
It is
force
not
him
for
to.
lack of fund. Laurentiis has shown he can actually dip into his purse if he actually wants to. So I think, like Samson said, it is a case of two alpha males not wanting to budge for each other. It is not because they don't have
See, you
resources.
cannot expect Napoli to spend 200 million in a transfer window without selling players. Now, the question is,
Exactly.
would Conte want you to sell some of his good players just so that you can fund this transfer market? It's not
no.
possible. Napoli
No, I'm
cannot
not.
afford to
I've
spend that
not
kind
even
of
made
money
mention
without
of
selling.
any of the
We
good.
all
I
know
just
Conte
said
is not a considerate
Osimhen is
coach.
expected to be sold. Osimhen is expected to be sold. We're already talking of a minimum of 75
I think
million.
he has
So it's
agreed
going
to
to.
move to Saudi Arabia.
You
I
understand?
mean, okay, let's say they sell Osimhen for 70 million. How do they raise
Yes.
the remaining 130?
All right. Add to that the
Varaskelia
fact
now.
that
Where's
not even
Varaskelia's money?
Faratelli.
You do understand how accounting is done. That's for last season now.
Yinka, Yinka,
As
add
far
to
as
that
Conte is concerned, Varaskelia was not
participation
replaced.
participation fee for next year Champions League. Add to that. Then
60
consider
million.
See,
their usual profit
next
margin.
year's Champions League, at the very most, if they make it out of the group stage, that's only when they can say they are going to make good money. If they do not
We
make
know
it out of
say
the group,
we,
which is not
we know
guaranteed,
say
the
we know
sporting
Serie A
director,
teams.
what?
We know Serie A teams
Hold on,
usually account for Champions League money beforehand. The participation money is already part of their
hold on. I'm going
transfer
to explain the way it works. Most sporting directors in Serie A usually account for reaching a certain level in Champions League. For example, according to reports, Marotta accounted for Inter reaching the second round of the Champions League this season. So anything that comes after that is a
It's
bonus.
bonus,
Because
definitely.
Marotta expects that with Inter's level, you
Bonus.
need to get to the Champions League second round. Now, next season, just because Inter has gotten to the final this season, does not mean that Marotta will then account for or budget for
Semi-final.
quarterfinal or semi-final. It's still going to account for second
Semi-final.
round because he knows
Definitely,
that this season is
definitely
not
that's Inter's case.
now.
But in this case, I have
No,
not
no,
even
no. I
talked
want to
of
give you.
semi-final.
Wait,
I'm
wait,
yet
I
to
only
Valencia.
land.
said
Let me land. Let me
participation
land.
bonus.
Let me land. Now, for a
All
club
right.
But
like Napoli
Napoli should
that
be
does not
guaranteed
go to
at
the
least about
Champions League
40 to
every
45
time,
million
the
pounds
very
in
least that
participation.
I'm very, very certain of it that they would budget for would be to make it to the group stage of Champions League.
Which
Anything
they've
that
done.
comes after that would then be this thing. Now, most people often think that when you go to a competition or you make money as a club, everything has to be spent on transfers, forgetting that there are other expenses that the club has to run. There are, salaries that you have to pay to the players that you have on ground. There are salaries that you have to pay to staff. There are other expenses, logistics, whatever that you have to pay. That brings up your entire expenses to a whole sum or to a whole figure. Now, if you now say all the money that they make, let us go and spend it on transfers because Antonio Conte has asked for players. How do you expect the club to survive? Antonio Conte, the
Well,
problem that Antonio Conte put Inter in financially up until this very moment, Inter is just getting out of it this season because he brought us. Yes, he won us the league, but at what cost? At what cost? He got us Romelu Lukaku. He got us. We spent money that we did not have,
Actual
and then
fact,
after,
we signed
we then
Achilles
had to
too.
start trying to recover. That is what he's trying to do to what is it called now, Napoli, and I think that is what he tried to do at Chelsea as well. When Abramovich decided, I mean, I cannot continue with this guy. He's always demanding for more. He does not care how much the club spends. Did the same at Juve, did the same at Napoli, did the same at did the same at Juve, did the same at Inter. He's trying to do the same at Napoli now.
well, for a man that delivers the trophy,
At
what can
what
you say?
cost? I keep asking, at what
What
cost?
If
can you
you
say?
go back to his
I
roots,
mean,
actually, that's how
you
he
keep saying
started his coaching
and
career.
Who
I'm not
says
saying
Man City
I'm not
pay
saying
that
he's not
cost?
a good
Without
coach.
considering the
Who
level of
says
the club.
Arsenal is
And
ready
I'm
to
not
pay
saying he's
that
not a
cost?
good coach. Antonio Conte is a good coach.
Conte
He
does
would
not
win you the league.
consider the financial
But
situation of the club.
he
All he
he does
wants
not
is for his
consider your
team to come
financial
to pass.
situation. He throws tantrum every week. Almost every week, you think he's leaving, you think he's staying, you think he's leaving, you think he's staying, you think he's fighting with management. Then again, at what cost? You end up losing every other trophies that you can actually fight for just to focus on one. So you're spending 200 million or thereabouts just for your coach to intentionally drop out of the Champions League, intentionally drop out of Coppa Italia, and then win the league, and then everybody will hail him as a messiah. It doesn't just make any sense to me.
I was saying these decisions are not made in tandem with the management. Like he's doing it
Anyways,
individually, and the
uh,
management is not carried
Tosin,
along.
That's
I can
why
how
assure
do
you
you,
that
clubs
if Simone
that are
Inzaghi
trying
wanted
to
to drop
work their
out
way
of the
back to the
Champions
top.
League or drop out of the
That's
Coppa
why he
Italia
carefully
this
selects
season,
his
he
clubs.
would have done that. But there's no management that goes into the season and says, "Oh, we have to lose," because apart from the financial incentive, you also have to keep your fans happy. We cannot just go into the season and say, "Oh, okay, when it gets to a point, we'll just drop out of the Champions League or we'll drop out of the Europa League." But I know that is what Conte does. Look at the team that he fielded against last year in the Coppa Italia this season.
In
That
the
was
Copa
like his team
Italia.
C. That was like his team C. So I do not think it's
He
something
lost
that
that match
management agrees with. It's
and
just
went
that
on
Conte
to
is
win
someone that you
the
cannot question
second.
because at the end of the day, he's going to give you that league title.
well, Tosin, as an Arsenal fan now, is there a player in that Napoli squad that, if I ask you to pick one player in that Napoli squad, who are you picking?
Lukaku.
Mm. Um, Ahmed mentioned Lukaku. Yes,
Ah,
because of the current situation of Arsenal not having a striker. But if I look at the team, it's so hard for me to pick someone from that team. Apparently, it's just so hard for me to pick someone from that team. So
Yeka?
at the moment, I don't think I have anyone to pick.
Nobody. Yeka? One
that
player from
explains the
Napoli
magic
squad.
Conte just did.
Well, if I could, well, there's a difference between having players and having a team now. AC Milan has decent players, but they don't have a team.
Definitely.
Napoli does not really have quality players like that, but they do have a team. They play as a team. That's one thing that Antonio Conte brings to your club, and he also brings a winning mentality because he knows how to motivate players. But if I was to pick someone from this team, I'll go with Bongiorno.
You
Bongiorno,
are a
the
thief.
defender.
You are a thief.
I was told to pick now. I
You
be
are
no be
a
me say I
thief.
want tip am now. Then I say make
Deji,
I pick one.
pick your own player, Jaye.
Yes, but if I were to pick any player from the Napoli team, I don't know. It might not be that good, it might not be that exceptional, but I think Zambo Anguissa is the only profile that is missing at Inter. We lack that physicality in the middle of the park, and sometimes in some particular games,
Barella.
it's always obvious that, oh, if we have this kind of profile, we would have somehow gotten something out of those games. So I think Zambo Anguissa to an extent, because Inter have a working system, so I see him just slotting in very easily due to his physical presence. He's the only
I
one I
thought you
can
said
pick
our
from the
biggest
Napoli
problem
team.
was defense.
Um, Anguissa
Yeah,
would
we
Anguissa would
have
offer you
Achabi.
box to box.
We lack that physical presence in the
Achebi
middle
that
of the
cannot play
park.
5 games in a row.
But Anguissa will offer you box to
Bon
box.
Junior has been injured more than Achabi this season. Achabi has literally
But
played more
Bonjourno is
games than Bon
24 or
Junior.
25. Bonjourno is 24 or
His
25, so
injury
you can still
records are
bank on
really,
him.
really
Achebi is
poor. You cannot
37.
depend on him. His
He,
injury records
You
are not
cannot
encouraging.
depend on Bonjourno because he's just been
Forza,
injured this season
Forza Arsenal.
for the first time in his career. Wow.
He has missed a large chunk of the season already, so I am
Of
not
this
banking on
season.
that.
Before
Anyways,
this season, go.
Yes, and
Ahmed,
that's his first season at the top.
Before
Inter
this season,
fans,
go.
make we
This
keep
is the first season at the
Bonjourno,
top, so
You
we are judging him by
Inter
the
fans,
last
you know
season.
you
them.
cannot judge. If we are going to judge Achebi was injured a lot this season. He was injured a lot last season as well.
Cars, can you
Not
hear
as
me?
much as Bonjono this season. Bonjono missed more
I'm talking
matches than
about
he played.
Achebi over the last 2 seasons.
Cars, can you
Compare
hear me?
Achebi over the last 2 seasons. Compare Bonjourno
Last
over the
season,
last
But in
two
the
seasons.
second half of the season, Achebi came to he was immense for us. He was
I
always
cannot trust
available.
Achebi. In fact, after this
The
season,
more
Achebi
the,
should
the
get
time
out
he
of
missed
Inter.
matches were in the first round.
despite the magic in San Siro against Barca.
No
He
problem.
should get out.
No
I do not
problem.
want
But you
players
can
that I
always
cannot
get a
rely on.
replacement.
Ahmed, pick a player, pick a player.
Sounds you and I know we need Bonjono the most in that squad. it is the easy choice.
Well, Napoli have some efficient players. I'll put it that way. Bonjour is a great player, a great young player. Anguissa is a good profile also. Scott McTominay has also come to, you know,
Now
potentially
will
win
fade
the
away
league,
eventually, Jerry.
but he's winning.
Conte will
He's
go and the
probably winning the
motivation will go.
MVP.
Let
He's winning
Conte
the
Ginger
MVP
go
this
He
season.
now.
has won
The,
it. He
the
has
Ginger
won
will
it.
go with him.
Oh, he has won the MVP already.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, it is.
He has
It
won the
is.
MVP already. He was named
Kaz,
the MVP before the start of the match day.
welcome to tonight's show.
Yes,
Can you
boss.
hear me, Kaz?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Friends of Napoli.
Pick a Napoli player.
He didn't
Uh,
say that now. Why are you forcing it on him?
Kaz, please pick a Napoli player in the Napoli squad. Which of the players has impressed you the most? Who would you pick for Milan?
I was Martin for Milan. Did you say Milan?
Yes, now if I say who are you picking it for before? Super
You said you
Eagles.
should pick a
Uh,
Napoli
I don't.
player for
I
Milan.
don't.
A Napoli player that you would like to see in Milan.
I don't want to see any of their players in Milan. They should keep their players. I don't. I don't want to see any of their players in Milan. They should keep
What
their
about
players.
Kaz,
any
are
Maybe
you on
Arsenal
strike?
player?
McTominay, but then I said
Kaz, are you on
I
strike?
don't.
Cars, what about any Arsenal player?
I'm not a. Do
Kaz,
Arsenal
are you
have
on
players?
strike?
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not on strike. I said maybe McTominay, but then if I have my way,
Would
I
you
don't
not
want
like to
any of
see
their players in my
Neres
team.
replacing Rafael?
They are not really very superb players, so to say. They're just players that are playing at a
They fit the
particular level
system.
because of a particular factor. So not a player that you can solely rely on. You've seen them play in some games in this season, and then you wonder who are these players really
I
players
mean, they
or
were bad in some games
what
this season.
exactly are
Really
they?
bad.
Yeah. So
I don't know how they won that
I
league.
don't.
Ah, Zaggy. Cha 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 cha
McTominay,
cha.
We gave them the lead.
Moving on,
The,
Now
moving
the
on,
the
Inzaghi
moving
league
on,
touch
was
him.
actually for Inter to lose. So to be fair,
Inzaghi.
moving on, guys, moving
Inzaghi
on,
Inzaghi fucked up
guys,
that.
moving
amazing.
on, guys.
It is well.
Moving on, guys. On Wednesday, we saw probably the most boring Europa League final ever played
In
in the
recent
history
history.
of mankind. You know, Tottenham Hotspur are featured in the most boring Champions League final, and now they have played in the most boring Europa League final.
They are setting the record.
Fortunately for them, they came out as winners. We congratulate Tottenham Hotspur and their fans worldwide. Uh, it's a it's a fresh air for them after 17 years watching the likes of West Ham win an European trophy, Palace this season, Newcastle this season. Finally, Ange Postecoglou
Mr.
has
Tokadu.
won a trophy in his second
talking I do.
season. Tosin,
Talking now, too.
has Tottenham had a better season than Arsenal?
This is not fair.
I was expecting you to ask that question.
That's not fair.
Um,
This is the house of banter. This
to
is the
some
house
people,
of banter.
they would say yes, and to some people they would say no.
To you.
And to me, I would
Who
say
are the people that will say no?
um, no. And the reason why I would say, yeah, they won a trophy, quite all right. And yes, and the rule says anyone who wins Europa League qualifies for Champions League, and Arsenal qualified for. Sorry, Tottenham has qualified for Champions League. But when you look at it, Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur competed in the same league, and I think Tottenham Hotspur they are is it 17th or just above relegation, which to me is a really really bad thing for a
Mm,
club.
mm.
Yes, above relegation, and when you look at Europa League, because I've had this conversation with people and they mentioned that yeah, they won a trophy, and my belief is Arsenal has already passed that level of winning or playing Europa League, because if we're
Eh?
in that level, yes, Arsenal has passed that
Mhm.
level.
Let's
If
have it.
we're
Let's
if
have it. Let's have it.
Let me now tell you, okay, for example, now, do you want Arsenal to go play Europa League
If
when
if
they are
if
competing for
if you
when
will
they are
win it,
competing for Champions League? When they are competing for Champions League, the sixth or seventh club in the league goes for Europa League. Hope you know, but Arsenal has passed that level. We don't play Europa League anymore. We compete with big teams in Champions League. You understand what I
Tosin,
mean?
Tosin,
So
let me ask you. Let me ask you a direct question now. For next season,
yes,
Arsenal wins Europa League and finish 17,
okay.
or Arsenal finishes second and goes to Champions League. Which one would you pick as an Arsenal fan?
Arsenal finish second and goes Champions League.
No trophy.
It gives them.
No
It gives
trophy.
them he gives them. Wait, how much does the winner of Europa League? How much
As a
does
fan,
that
do you
Europa
get
League
part of that money?
So
generate? Tottenham
Uh-huh.
winning Europa League
Mm,
and Arsenal finishing second. Arsenal
mm-hmm.
will still attract better players than Tottenham Hotspur. That's just the fact. If you don't know,
That is not
it's
Okay.
because of
just
your league
normal.
finish. It is because of the bigger pedigree that you've
the only
managed to
meaningful
establish.
thing
But
Arsenal did this
at
season
the
was
end
to
of the day, is
qualify
that
for the Champions
something
League
that
next
you
season.
would use to
Tottenham did the
brag
same thing by
when
winning
people
the
bring
trophy.
their trophies on the table?
So I don't
I
really
mean, the,
understand
the
why
way
you
I
would say
see it is
Arsenal had a
this:
better
as
season.
Arsenal had a good season, yes, if you look at it contextually, they've had a good season. But if you ask a Tottenham fan, would they rather have the season that Arsenal has had or the season that they've had, knowing that they would win the Europa League? I'm very sure that a Tottenham fan would choose that. They would not swap with Arsenal fans this season.
Because they've been suffering. Because they've been suffering for many many
At all.
How
years.
long have
So
you been
what do you
suffering?
expect? Because they've been suffering. Because they've been suffering for many many
Arsenal
years.
fans
So
are
it's
Arsenal
expected.
fans are used to
Is
suffering that
is
they don't even
it
want to
is
taste victory
see
again.
it is
They don't mind waiting
expected.
for
Okay,
another 10 years.
let me just
Okay,
ask this question. So sorry.
I spoke
We have
I
AC
spoke
Milan
with a
fans
man.
here, we have Inter Milan fans here. If Inter goes this season without a trophy, I want to ask the Milan fans in the house, would you rather have the season that you've had, knowing that you've won one trophy, or have the season that Inter has had, knowing that you would not win any trophy?
Uh,
I will hold my one trophy.
it's a different. It's a
Considering it
no.
was
It's
it
a
was just a
different
super
ballgame.
cup,
It's a
I would rather have inter season,
no.
honestly.
Aside
If
Is
the
it not a
fact
if we
that
trophy?
had
it's even a super cup.
if we had added
No.
the
I
Copa
think
Because I'm
Italia
not going to
season,
lie
aside
to you, I want a trophy. I know that we've not had a bad season. I wouldn't consider our season bad. It's not terrible. But
of
a
course.
trophy still adds a bit of prestige. It
So
adds a bit of
the
bragging rights.
the
In the
reason why
end,
it's a bit
in the
different
end,
from
when the banter is cooking, I have a trophy to show. Forget the name.
Exactly. That's what we brag with as fans,
yeah,
not how much the
yes,
club has
yes.
made or the
But
players that we
if
are
I may
buying.
say, but if I may say,
Carry on,
for
honorable.
Arsenal, the difference between Arsenal and Milan is that Milan has not suffered this long without a trophy. Arsenal are gradually moving into a drought where we can say, guys, bring something home now.
I don't agree. Arsenal won the Community
they won
Shield,
the
which
FA
is the
Cup
equivalent
recently.
of the
Bro, well,
Community Shield is the
no,
equivalent
we
of
are not.
Super Cup now. The Super Cup that Milan won.
Yes.
Yes or yes?
Yeah. Now, Arsenal, they are the only one now in London who do not have an European trophy. And
That's
they
a
classify
lie.
themselves.
That's a lie.
Only big team.
That's a lie.
I said in London,
Arsenal has an European
It's
trophy. They just don't have
a
Champions League.
hex, which is why I mentioned that is a lie.
Baba,
They have an
1994. Let
European
them know.
trophy.
They even have two, actually.
No,
at the
the
end of the
first
day,
cup.
at the end
What's
of the
first
day,
cup?
at
They
the end
have
of the
one that they
day,
call the Interface Cup.
they need to bring in something that their cleaners can now decide to wipe a bit of dust away from their cabinets and now put
Ah,
in something new that their fans can look up to and say, okay, yes, we now have something. If for me,
They have the cheapest
I would think of a more futuristic thing for Milan, because Milan now will probably go into crisis if they are not careful. There's no money to sign players. Our best player is almost going to Man City at the moment. I would rather take. Do you know how much Inter will be bringing home? And I'm saying this as somebody that actually would think. I don't want Milan because next season, if you are not careful, we are gradually going in the
This is
trajectory
nothing.
of United.
Do you even know who is
8,
your coach going
Cast
to
is
and then
be?
before you know it, we will
Cast is
finish
spoiling
17. We don't even know who our manager is for next season. So we have to be careful in making a wish to say, oh, I would rather just have a Copa. I beg, I beg, I beg, I beg.
No, I'm not sad.
At the
I'm not
moment,
sad
I
about the
don't, I
season
don't
that
want
we've
to.
had, but that trophy, man, it
Yes,
was
I
always
know.
something that.
And you are still even in for a trophy.
No,
Only
I'm
if
just saying,
trumpet sounds
assuming that we
before
lose
the
it.
before the trophy comes, and you might
anyways.
lose it because it's the season of the underdog.
We have come to the giveaway segment of the show, where I will ask the question. You have to answer the question on the YouTube, on our YouTube page. Okay, the question goes thus: in the last episode, Mayor, our resident Chelsea fan, suggested a coach that would win the league if he managed Real Madrid. Mayor suggested a coach who would win the league if he managed Real Madrid. Kindly provide the name of this coach in the YouTube comment section. It's been an interesting show. Thanks to Napoli with DJ Otilo playing in background for Inter fans. We've managed to exhaust this segment of the show discussing uh, the Scudetto and the sad Europa League final that we saw. In the next segment, we'll continue with the Europa League final, discussing about United. Uh, but for now, I think you should enjoy what has been discussed so far. Thank you, guys.